People of Reddit that honestly believe they have been abducted by aliens, what was your experience like? I was home alone in this little house I lived in the middle of nowhere. It was probably around 2 AM, and I was just listening to music, enjoying having the place to myself for a change, when all of a sudden my dogs started going crazy. Normally, when someone pulls in the driveway or comes up to the back door, they go to the door they heard the noise beyond and peek through the blinds to see who it is, but this night they are running all around the house from door to door, barking louder than they ever do. When I stood up to go see what the hell they were on about, I noticed that the whole house seemed to be lit up with a deep blue light. Turning into the living room, it became obvious that it was emanating in from each window. I put on my shoes to go outside and see who was out there, but by the time I got out there the light had faded away. There was no sound of a car engine or really anything, and where I lived you could hear a car coming from a mile away. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I had the weirdest sense of fight or flight where neither option seemed viable, like I was frozen to the spot. I wanted to turn around and get back inside, and then I just was right back in the chair I was listening to music in. As if I just blinked, and there I was. Don't really like telling people about it, because it skeeves me out so bad. I'm not sure if I'd say I was abducted, but what happened was really weird. Was laying on my couch with a blanket over me, and I look at the clock, and it says like 11:23 AM or something. Suddenly a white flash happens, and it's 12:40 PM. It happens again 3 more times, and by the time I could comprehend what was going on it was like 5:30 PM. Every time it would happen there would be like 15 minutes of confusion and trying to move. I was stuck in a dreamlike state until it stopped happening. Edit, old F, but rereading this, I remembered that the only reason I said I was laying under a blanket is because at the very end, once I was able to stand up I was on top of it. Not entirely sure if we were abducted, but my wife, who was a non-believer, and I both have missing time. We were having sex on our bed when we suddenly both came to and were in totally different places in the room. Not sure how much time had passed, but she looked at me and said, "What the fuck just happened?" I said I wasn't sure. Neither of us were scared, and we were both incredibly tired. We decided we would just go to bed and talk about it in the morning. I looked up instances of missing time and a lot of them said the same thing. When they came to they were just very tired, knew something was totally weird, but just wanted to go to sleep. Edit, we had a carbon monoxide detector. Fully functional. It was an app, not a house, so it was routinely checked and up to code at all times. Edit 2. First, for those saying we automatically assumed it was aliens then, no, please reread the first 7 words of my story. We do not know, but just by googling missing time you will find a heavy correlation between that and abduction stories. Secondly, the wife is out of town for the night. I'll throw an edit up in the morning if she wants to chime in about it. Edit 3. Okay. The wife texted me and she wants to add something. It was the day we got engaged. Of course she wanted to add that because I forgot. Oops. She said it was like she fell asleep during sex and she woke up, but she was already sitting up and I was standing at the door. She remembers that we both came into consciousness at the exact same time and were disoriented, but felt like everything was okay. She's hesitant to say aliens, abduction, or even something spiritual, but she exclaimed something happened. Never expected this to blow up in any way, but alas, the detectives of Reddit, my favorite ones have amassed to find the answers. Unfortunately we may never know, but maybe that's what keeps us alive in the first place. They're out there. I live in a pretty secluded part of Washington state. I was in my late teens and my parents had gone to Seattle for something, so I was put in charge of the property. I was closing everything up, that is the barn we own, and some other small utility buildings, when I look up and see 3 reddish orange lights in a triangular formation. They were just floating there, as if they were magnified stars. So magnified, in fact, that everything was slightly illuminated by their warm hue. I'm mesmerized, standing there, and suddenly lose my sense of balance, as if the ground in front of me has begun rising, and I pass out. Next thing I know I'm on the ground in the barn I had locked up, according to my watch, half an hour before. Needless to say, I was petrified. I scurried to the house with my tail between my legs, scared and confused. I slept not at all that night, and any sense of security I had was gone. Even though I was locked safely in my house, I felt hopelessly exposed. In hindsight, I think it's possible I was lightheaded, opened the barn door and fell down, but it still shakes me up thinking about it. About 20 years ago I was walking home from the shops with my dad, and we stopped to watch some really odd lights in the sky. There were two lights, slightly bigger than the stars, zooming around and orbiting each other, making figure eights etc. And then they stopped moving, got bigger and bigger until bright light filled the sky, and then they were gone. We carried on our journey home. We hadn't stopped for more than 5 minutes. The whole journey should have been 20 minutes. When we got home, my mum was freaking out. We had been gone for 65 minutes. Our watches were both still working, but were 45 minutes behind every clock in the house. She had neighbors / friends about looking for us. I don't know what happened to us, or what we saw, maybe nothing. Edit. There was no search party organized. I worded myself badly. My mother simply had nearby neighbors and friends who had lived on / near our route home checking to see if they had seen or could see us, because it was winter with freezing temperatures outside. It was a dark country road we were walking home along, and I was only 8 years old. We also didn't have mobile phones yet and weren't prone to detouring. I had a year-long experience of strange events that I've never been able to explain or have a full memory of. It started in winter working up north on a project. Our crew was put up in a motel 10 minutes outside of the largest town in the area. I somehow got upgraded to a king-size bed with couches. Nice room. Our days were long, so I used the couches to stack my clothes in piles, jeans, hoodies, etc. I had brought my entire desktop computer with me and was in the middle of massive argument with my ex over Facebook Messenger at 1 AM during the second week up there. At some point I opened my eyes and I was sitting on top of a pile of hoodies on the couch. The time was now 4 AM. I rushed over to the computer. At some point after 1 AM I had stopped typing a sentence midway through. My ex had left a ton of messages throughout the night demanding I answer her back. She also left missed calls and texts on my phone that was still sitting beside the mouse. I figured I had somehow passed out, but wasn't sure how I ended up on top of my hoodies on the couch and not just fall into bed. Went to sleep normally for the remaining couple hours before work. A couple of days later a stranger scenario happened. My routine was we'd finish work, I'd come back to the motel around 9 PM, shower, change, and drive into town for late night dinner at Boston Pizza, only restaurant open late other than McDonald's. So this particular night I went through my routine, took a shower, changed, headed for the door. I got to my car, and when I turned it on something felt really wrong. I looked at the time, it was now 2 AM. I had no idea how I had lost around 4 hours between showering and getting into my car. It felt weird. My whole body felt weird. I felt violated, like a rape victim would describe waking up from being assaulted while passed out. You feel violated, but you have no idea what happened. Not a single memory or explanation. I stayed up all night scared shitless trying to figure out what happened. Why was I missing 4 hours? If I had passed out, why didn't I wake up on the floor? Why did I feel violated? Etc. The rest of the project nothing else happened, but once I got back home things started happening that were just as weird. There's more to my experiences, if people want to know. It only lasted for about a year, but those two events were the starting catalysts. I've never actually figured out what happened, but most people I've asked all seem to agree it had to be abduction events. I really don't know if I was abducted or not, but I witnessed something pretty inexplainable. My ex and I were driving out of my suburban neighborhood super late one night on the way to go eat Waffle House or something. As we're nearing the exit to my neighborhood I look up into the sky and we both notice these three really strange orange lights in a triangle formation. We then stop the car in the middle of the road to figure out WTF we are looking at. These lights didn't have the quality of lights you see emitting from a plane or a star. When you look at stars, they are so far away that they almost seem 2D. But these lights felt 3D somehow. These lights were much bigger and seemed closer, like high enough into the sky to be well above the trees, but not above the clouds. And they were just floating there, not moving up, down, left, or right, but eerily still. I really don't know how to explain how still these things were, but it was unnatural, and I know that sounds stupid, but that's how it felt when I saw them, and I wish I could explain it better. But when I saw this, I was both mesmerized and sort of in shock. I've always been a UFO enthusiast and I've always wanted to see something bizarre like this, and finally it was happening. I couldn't take my eyes off of what I was looking at, and I feel like I didn't for like an hour. I really don't know how much time passed, but it really did feel like an unnatural amount of time. Finally, these globes of light just abruptly dissolved away, kind of like they were sucked into a black hole or something. We break our gaze and look at each other, and my ex asks me if I just saw what she saw. And yeah, we couldn't come up with an explanation at all. To this day, no one believes me, and I don't care. I saw what I saw, and I'm now fully confident we are not alone. I can answer this one. For starters, I'm 21 years old now. I'm a guy. When I was 13 I was a chubby curly haired goof, and I was excited for my birthday within the next week. I had been getting very little sleep due to a mixture of excitement for the giant cookie I requested as my birthday cake and school stress rubbish. Bullies, really, kept me up at night for a few nights, so this experience might be caused by a mix of sleep deprivation / night terrors. I have had night terrors semi-frequently my entire life. Anyway, I was getting ready to sleep and snuggled into bed when I realized the lights were still on. So I sit up in bed and peek at my window. My view was obstructed mostly by a blanket covering the window, and my bed was in the corner of the room. So I only had a small view of the window, and I lock eyes with a grey head covering my entire view and beyond the window. Next thing I know, it was morning, and I was tucked back into bed with my lights still on, but my window was cracked open slightly. I told my parents about what happened at breakfast, and they told me to stop lying for attention. I lost a little bit more sleep from the experience and got over it pretty quickly. It never happened again. Not too fascinating. I'm a believer in aliens due to the size of the universe. However, I don't fully believe it was an alien I saw. A little bit of me wants to believe that it was an extraterrestrial. We had a big playground with a giant field not even 200 yards from our house we could walk to through the woods. So maybe it was an alien who parked his car and was just snooping around real quick. Edit. When I say car I mean spaceship. I'm not joking around giving an innuendo to illegal aliens. Might be too late, and I'm not sure I believe this to be what happened anymore, but I certainly believed it as a kid. When I was about 7, my parents and I briefly lived in an apartment in Chicago next door to my dad's old house. For whatever reason, on this night we all slept on the living room floor, me in between my parents. Sometime in the middle of the night I woke up and was entranced by an orange glow out one of the windows. We were on the second floor. I wandered the 5 or 10 feet over to it and looked out to see what I believed to be the house next door completely gone and a spacecraft in its place over an empty lot. I remember just standing there staring at it in disbelief, feeling as though I couldn't move an inch. And it must have felt like I was there for ages, and then bam, I woke up, back between my parents. So it was a dream, you'd think, except immediately after waking up I rolled over and puked my brains out. I wasn't sick, and I don't throw up unless there's a serious stomach virus going on, so it was for an undetermined reason. I won't sit here and claim I was actually abducted. As I got older I started to rationalize that I was probably just scared shitless by the dream, but I always do kind of wonder. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel for more videos.